Okay, look, I need a reality check here. I'm pretty sure I did the right thing, the sane thing, but the last few nights have been weird. And I just need someone to tell me I'm not crazy. So I broke up with my ex, Kyan, about a month ago. And when I say it was a breakup, I mean it was more like an exorcism. 2 years with that man felt like 20. He was an artist, you know the type, couldn't hold down a job for more than a few weeks, but he could spend hours talking about the vibrational frequency of a particular shade of beige. Living with him was exhausting. It was all about protecting his creative energy, which usually meant me paying the bills and tiptoeing around the apartment so I didn't disrupt his process. When he left, he didn't take much because he didn't have much. Except for this one thing he'd given me for our 1 year anniversary. It was this old, clunky music box, made of some dark, heavy wood and lined with faded, dusty-smelling velvet. It was ornate, I guess, in a creepy, gothic sort of way. He spun this whole dramatic story about it being a family heirloom made by his great-grandfather in the old country. He claimed it was priceless, a one-of-a-kind piece. To me, it was just a symbol of his whole deal, all performance, no substance. It played this little plinky-plonky tune that was supposed to be a traditional family lullaby, but it just sounded sad and out of tune. For the last year, it's just been sitting on my bookshelf, collecting dust and bad memories. So last week I did it. I was doing a big cleanse, getting rid of all his crap, reclaiming my space. I picked up that music box and just felt this wave of resentment. I thought, you know what, he always made me feel small and broke while he lorded this priceless thing over me. I'm going to see what it's actually worth. I took it to this weird little antique shop downtown. The old guy behind the counter barely looked at it, grunted, and offered me $300. 300 for his priceless family treasure. I almost laughed. I took the money and it felt incredible. It felt like I was finally getting paid back for all the groceries I'd bought, all the rent I'd covered. I took my friends out for a ridiculously expensive dinner, bought a dress I'd been wanting for months, and I didn't feel a single ounce of guilt. It was a gift, it was mine. I can do whatever I want with it. That's how gifts work, right? It was the final step in getting him out of my life. I was finally free, or so I thought. That first night I slept like a baby, better than I had in years. The apartment felt lighter, cleaner. The air itself seemed less heavy without that thing sitting on the shelf, radiating its pretentious energy. I woke up the next morning feeling genuinely, uncomplicatedly happy. I put on my new dress, I went to work. I felt like the main character in my own life for the first time in a long, long time. The $300 wasn't a lot of money, not really, but it wasn't about the cash. It was about the principle. It was about turning 2 years of misery into one good night out. The peace lasted for about 72 hours. The first thing I noticed was the sleep, or the lack of it. After that first blissful night, I started having trouble drifting off. I'd lie in bed, my mind racing, but about nothing in particular. It was just static, a low-level hum of anxiety that I couldn't pin down. I chalked it up to the breakup finally hitting me, the emotional fallout, totally normal. Then came the dreams. They weren't nightmares, not at first, they were just fragmented. Like watching a movie with half the scenes missing. Flashes of long, thin shadows in doorways, the feeling of being watched from a dark corner of the room, the sound of someone whispering just outside my range of hearing. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, but I couldn't remember a single detail, just the lingering, cold dread. And then the sound started. My apartment building is old, but it's solid. I've lived here for 5 years and I know its noises. The groan of the pipes when my downstairs neighbor showers, the faint rumble of the train a few blocks away. These were new sounds. Little things at first. A soft thump from the kitchen, like a book falling off a shelf, but when I'd go to check, everything would be in its place. The most persistent one was this sound like marbles being dropped on a hardwood floor. Except it sounded like it was coming from the ceiling. Which is impossible, I'm on the top floor, there's nothing up there but a dusty old attic space and the roof. I told myself I was just overtired, stressed. My brain was playing tricks on me, filling the new silence of the apartment, the silence left by Kyan's absence with phantom noises. It had to be that, it was the only logical explanation. I started taking melatonin to sleep, putting on white noise. I was determined to rationalize my way out of this. It was working too, for a little while. It stopped being a little while very quickly. Rationalization has a breaking point, and mine was shattered last Tuesday night. The marble dropping sound was back, only this time it was louder, more frantic. It wasn't just a few drops. It sounded like a whole bag had been spilled and was scattering across the floorboards right above my head. I sat bolt upright in bed, my blood running cold. I tried to tell myself it was a raccoon, a squirrel, anything. But the sound was too rhythmic, too deliberate, and then it stopped. Dead silence, a silence so profound it was somehow louder than the noise it replaced. That's when I heard the new sound. It was a hum, a low, guttural, almost electronic hum. It was the kind of sound you feel more than you hear, a vibration in the base of my skull. I realized with a jolt of pure terror that it was coming from inside my room. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying for it to go away, for it to be the refrigerator or the heating, anything. But it wasn't. The hum grew slightly in intensity, and then the sleep paralysis hit. I've never had it before, but you read about it. You know what it is. My body was completely frozen. I couldn't move a muscle, couldn't even twitch a finger. The only thing I could do was open my eyes, and I really, really didn't want to, but I couldn't stop myself. My eyelids fluttered open, and there was something at the foot of my bed. It wasn't a person, it was just a shape. A tall, impossibly thin silhouette against the faint glow of the streetlights from my window. It had no features, no face, no clothes. It was just a column of pure, solid blackness, denser than the surrounding shadows. It was just standing there, perfectly still, watching me. The hum was coming from it. It was the sound of its presence. I tried to scream. My throat was locked, my lungs were on fire, but all that came out was a pathetic, choked gasp. I was trapped inside my own body, forced to just lie there and stare at this thing. It felt like an eternity. I could feel its attention on me, a heavy, suffocating weight on my chest like a physical pressure. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it was over. My body unlocked with a violent shudder, and I gasped for air, scrambling to the head of my bed and fumbling for the lamp. The light flooded the room and there was nothing there. The hum was gone, the shape was gone, the room was empty, but the feeling wasn't. The absolute bone-deep certainty that I had not been alone. That's not something you can rationalize away. That's not stress. That's not your brain playing tricks. And as I sat there shivering in the light, I heard one last sound. It was faint, so faint I almost missed it. A tiny, melodic phrase, just a few notes, hummed in a tuneless, breathy whisper. It was the lullaby from the music box. Edit 1, whoa, okay. This got way more attention than I thought it would. Thanks for all the comments, even the ones calling me an idiot. I probably deserve that. A lot of you are asking the same questions, so I'll try to answer. No, I haven't tried to contact Kyan. I swore I'd block his number and never speak to him again, and I'm a stubborn bitch. And no, I don't have a carbon monoxide detector. I'll get one tomorrow, but most of you are asking about the music box itself, about what Kyan actually said when he gave it to me, and I'm realizing as I'm forcing myself to remember that I probably left out some important details. I guess I was trying to block it all out because it sounded so insane at the time. He didn't just hand it to me and say happy anniversary. There was a whole ceremony to it. He was so serious, so intense. He sat me down and told me the story again about his great-grandfather, the clockmaker from somewhere in Eastern Europe. He said the man wasn't just a clockmaker, he was I think the word he used was a warden or a guardian. He told me the music box wasn't just a music box. He called it a lullaby engine, a cradle for the restless. He said his family had a shadow, a thing that followed them, something that was drawn to their anxieties, their fears. He said it was a sleepless thing that fed on silence. And he said the lullaby was its countermeasure. He claimed that as long as the melody was present in a home, even just by the box being there, it would soothe the thing that shouldn't be disturbed. It would keep it quiet, keep it dormant. He looked me right in the eyes and said, as long as the music is near, you'll be safe, it will watch over you. I remember I actually rolled my eyes. I thought it was just more of his typical artsy, melodramatic bullshit. A way to make a clunky old box seem more special than it was. I thought it was a metaphor for our relationship, that he was the music that would keep my anxieties at bay. God, it sounds so stupid now. Typing this all out, seeing the words on the screen, I feel like the biggest fool on the planet. I didn't just sell an old music box. I sold a goddamn ghost alarm, and I think I just turned it off. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone, the antique shop. I had to get back to the antique shop. The memory of Kyan's words, no longer sounding poetic but like a dire, literal warning, was screaming in my head. A cradle for the restless. It feeds on silence. My apartment had been nothing but silence for a month. I threw on the first clothes I could find and practically sprinted the 6 blocks to the shop. It was one of those places that always seems to be on the verge of collapsing into itself, crammed with forgotten furniture, tarnished silver, and the sad, glassy eyes of porcelain dolls. The little bell above the door chimed with a sound that was far too cheerful for the dread coiling in my stomach. The old man, Abernathy, was sitting behind the counter, polishing a pair of silver tongs with a stained rag. He looked up at me over his spectacles, his expression unreadable. I was here last week, I blurted out, my voice raspy. I sold you a music box. A dark wood one, very ornate. He blinked slowly, deliberately, before a flicker of recognition crossed his face. Ah yes, the lullaby engine, a curious piece. Very specific craftsmanship. My heart leaped. You called it that, a lullaby engine. It's what it is, he said, setting the tongs down with a soft clink. Some things are just what they are. I need it back, I said, my voice cracking with desperation. Please, it was a mistake. I'll pay you back the 300. I'll pay you double, I don't care. I just need it back. Abernathy gave me a look that was a strange, unsettling mix of pity and amusement. He let out a dry, papery sigh. I'm afraid that's not possible, my dear girl, it's gone. Gone? What do you mean gone? You have to have the buyer's information, a name, a number, anything. I was leaning over the counter, my knuckles white. I knew I sounded hysterical, I didn't care. We don't operate that way here, he said calmly. Cash transactions, no records, the gentleman who bought it was very keen. He knew exactly what he was looking for. My blood ran cold. A gentleman, what did he look like? Abernathy paused, tapping a long, bony finger on his chin. He wasn't a regular. Dressed very well, but he looked tired, deeply tired, like a man who hadn't slept properly in a very long time. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. As he was leaving, he held the box to his chest, almost like he was cradling a baby, and he said the oddest thing. What? I whispered, barely breathing. What did he say? Abernathy looked me straight in the eye. His gaze was sharp, and for the first time I felt like he was seeing right through me. He said finally, "Now I can get some sleep." The floor seemed to drop out from under me. It wasn't random, it wasn't a coincidence. Someone else knew what that box was for. Someone else was being haunted, and they had been looking for a solution. And I, in my stupid, arrogant quest for closure, had gift-wrapped it for them. I stumbled out of the shop, the cheerful little bell mocking me. There was only one thing left to do, one person who would understand the sheer magnitude of what I had done. I pulled out my phone, my thumb hovering over the contact I had sworn I would die before ever touching again. I hit call, final update, I talked to Kyan, I'm still shaking. I don't think I'll ever stop shaking. He picked up on the second ring like he was expecting my call. There was no "I told you so," no anger. Just a terrifying, hollow exhaustion in his voice that mirrored my own. Cora, he said, and my name sounded like a prayer and a curse all at once. What did you do? I told him everything, my words tumbling out in a sob-choked mess. The sale, the money, the nightmares, the humming, the shape at the foot of my bed. I told him what the antique dealer said. Through it all, he was silent. When I finally finished, the only sound was his ragged breathing on the other end of the line. The shadow, Kyan, what is it? I begged. You have to tell me. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. It's not a shadow, Cora, it's a parasite, an heirloom, the worst kind. My great-grandfather didn't just make the box. He made it because he had to. He brought it back with him from the war, or it followed him. A thing that attaches itself to a bloodline and just feeds. On your rest, on your peace, on your sanity. It's a sleepless thing and it hates to be alone. I felt the air leave my lungs. But why me? Why is it here now? His voice dropped to a whisper, and it was the most painful sound I have ever heard. Because I love you, he said, and the words were a confession. That's the one thing we learned about it over the generations. It's possessive. It fixates on one person at a time. But it seems to ignore anyone that person truly loves and entrusts with their most precious possession. It's like a loophole, a blind spot. The horror of it dawned on me, a slow, sickening sunrise. You didn't give me the music box as a gift, I whispered. It was the only real gift I could give you, he choked out, and now he was openly crying. It was my shield, Cora. It was the only thing keeping it focused on me. I gave it to you because I thought if you had it, you'd be safe. It wouldn't see you. And maybe I could get a single night's sleep without it standing over my bed. I was so tired. The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture of such profound, selfish, and yet tragically understandable horror. I hadn't just sold a music box. I hadn't just nullified my own protection. I had taken his only shield, sold it to a stranger, and in doing so, I'd painted a giant, glowing target on my own back. I had announced myself to the thing that had been hunting his family for a century. Kyan, I started, but I didn't know what to say. It's too late, he said, his voice flat with despair. You got its attention, Cora, it knows you now. The call ended, I'm not sure who hung up, I'm just sitting here now in the dark. I haven't turned on the lights since I got home. I'm too afraid of what I might see in the reflections on the windows or in the corners of my vision. The silence in the apartment is a living thing. It's thick and heavy, pressing in on me from all sides. Kyan told me some things before we hung up. Rules, desperate, flimsy rules passed down through generations of terror. Don't acknowledge the sounds. No matter what you hear, it wants you to look. It wants you to be afraid. Salt at the doorways on the windowsills. It's not a wall, but it's a distraction. It doesn't like it. And never ever look directly into a dark corner for too long. It takes that as an invitation. I did what he said. I found the sea salt in my kitchen pantry, and my hands trembled so much I spilled half of it on the floor as I traced a pathetic, thin white line across the threshold of my front door. It feels like a child's game, like drawing a line in the sand against the tide. Just now I heard it, a sound from the hallway just outside my bedroom door, a soft, dragging scrape. The sound of dry wood on a dusty floor. It's here. I thought I was being strong. I thought I was taking back my life, cleansing my space, exorcising a bad memory. I was so wrapped up in my own petty resentments, my own narrative of being the wronged party. I saw Kyan as a weak, pretentious artist and the music box as a symbol of his emptiness. But it wasn't empty, it was full, it was a container, and I just opened it. I sold a trinket for $300, and in exchange, I've invited a century-old parasite into my home. There's no getting the box back. The man who bought it is probably sleeping soundly for the first time in years. He's free, and the thing that used to watch him sleep, it's here now. It's just outside my door, and it's ready for its new lullaby.